art has been important in kind of making points, in making things clear. From the time we started, during the Iraq War in the early 2000s, people were making art about that. People have been making art about immigration. It's like it sort of completely changes the way let's see. I just heard John Waters saying, if you want to change people's minds, you have to make them laugh. And art doesn't necessarily make people laugh, but it kind of shakes them out of whatever way they've been thinking beforehand. At least that's what you can hope that art can do.
I think that also a lot of the activists either start off as artists, like they already think outside the box, and they are already thinking, what's being told to me isn't necessarily by the newspapers or by the media isn't the true story. So I'm going to create art that actually talks about what is really going on. So a lot of the people that we know that are activists are also artists, or were artists to start with and then became activists. So I think there's a tie there. To me, I also think that art is a way to practice your message.
How long have you been writing or like performing spoken word? Like how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing spoken word and performing it since I was 11 years old.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. But how did you get into doing that?
Actually, it was my grandma and my aunt. They didn't force me into it, but they kind of forced me into it. And there were a lot.
It wasn't like a forced thing. It was kind of a
Right, like a strong encouragement, like we really want you to do this. So they got me involved at my church at first, and then after that we started traveling. So I started traveling throughout Illinois and then to Alabama to compete in different spoken word competitions.
When I was in high school, and I didn't like boys and I didn't like girls and I didn't like anybody, so I had a lot of time on my hands, I would play the piano a lot. I'd play it instead of going down to lunch where all the girls were talking about being on a diet or their boyfriends, which both of them struck me as extremely boring. I stayed in the piano room and played piano. And then I'd kind of discovered that I'd make a little tune. And on the first day when I played it, it was really interesting. And then I played it again the second day, played it a lot, 20 times, 30 times, over and over again. It was interesting, but by the third day, it started getting boring. And it made me really sad. It looked like music always started out like the new person on the block. Wow, they're cool. And then after you got to know them for a while, I was like, ugh. So that intrigued me, that there could be some kind of decay, particularly with pretty melodies. So I then started fiddling around, trying to make music with really strange things, like in the refrigerator, the old refrigerators used to have, the shelves would be metal. And if you banged on them, they'd make a certain pitch. So I thought, okay, I was going to collect in our downstairs refrigerator, which is falling apart. I collected all these metal trays and made pieces out of bing bong bong. And that was crazy. And that didn't get boring so fast.
My name is Drake Matier, or Haki Shabazz. I'm a venue project intern for the IMC. I am the senior project manager of Naturopath Nutrition Incorporated, a community health organization situated on the south side of Chicago, created by my mother in 2012. She actually made the organization for me to get involved. When I was first radicalized, she said, yeah, I'm gonna give you something, but I'm gonna give you a health and wellness route. And it's crazy because I just recently graduated from the University of Illinois with a Bachelor's of Science in Community Health. Now I'm a grad student at the University of Illinois in Masters of Public Health. And so I'll be here for 2 more years to be a pain in the butt for the white supremacist structure. But most, I don't want to say most importantly, because those are all important, but I am also an artist and a musician. I play piano, guitar, and bass, slowly playing around with the drums. I have a saxophone that was donated to me. I tried to play with it, but that's a little too difficult for me. But I have a band, Haki and them, and we had our first performance on May 19th for Malcolm X's birthday, Ho Chi Minh's birthday, and Lorraine Hansberry's birthday. But we performed my project Far From Home, which has not dropped yet. Hasn't dropped yet. But we played, you know, it was all originals, so arranged, composed, written by me, lyrics and everything. But the story is about Black liberation theology, so being far from home.
I started singing when I was really little. My grandma was a choir director, and she always encouraged music. I got some solos and some plays and stuff like that, and then kind of went away from it in high school, and then learned guitar. I took guitar lessons when I was 18 for a year, and then I just always sought to jam with other musicians and just improvise and collaborate on just whatever is present, you know, whatever we wanted, whatever is alive in that moment. And I've just kind of really used my ear to do that. And since then, in the last 2 years, I decided to start recording and start writing songs.
So my next question for you is a follow-up question. How do you think music has helped you mentally and like in your life in general?
Well, that's a really good question. So I would say since I decided to do music, it was probably, big part of it was for mental health reasons. Just deciding to follow my passion and deciding to dig into my art. I've always felt like an artist, but I've never really given it that chance. And I just said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. That this is me, so I'm gonna do it. It's been really good. It's been really challenging. I would say, you know, kind of spiritually and stuff, but that's what I seek, and that's how you grow.
In this last year with the pandemic and everything going on, you know, tell me, you know, what does art and activism mean to you? How do they come together too as well? How does artistry and activism come together? And how have you practiced your artistry and activism in this last year?
Well, I think that art and activism is really important because activism is very draining physically and mentally. Like, I know that a lot of people, like when last year when we were all marching and stuff like that, I know my feet were hurting and stuff like that. And I feel like it's very important to sometimes you can always be resisting, but that doesn't mean you always have to be fighting, walking on the street, yelling at cops, stuff like that. You can be writing a poem, you can be writing a letter to your local legislation, you can be signing a petition. And I think that it's important to sometimes use your energy to create art. So how I've been doing that is in my poetry. I write, a lot of my poetry is political, if not all of it. I write a lot about my experiences, and I write a lot about how I feel, what my view on the world is. And I think that it's important that we have lots of different views on the world so we can have a world view.
How did I get into being a DJ? I was in, that's a good one. I was in I think it was the 8th or 9th grade, okay? and we're at one of the first back to school dances. And we're in the cafeteria, and it was a dance night. It was like 6 o'clock, and the DJ had his stuff set up, and he was playing music, and I thought it was cool. And I love to dance. So when we walked in, the music was already playing, and I danced in church, and in my mind, I wasn't scared because it's dancing. But most kids stand on the wall, but I didn't stand on the wall. I went in dancing, okay? I slid on in, I was like, ooh, Michael Jackson, you know? But anyways, so I seen the DJ, and he was so cool, but I was the only one dancing, and I was really sad. But I went up and I started talking to the DJ because he got the crowd started, and he got all the kids on the dance floor. And I said, you know what? I want to do that one day. I want to get people excited to dance. I don't want to inspire people to dance. So that's when it triggered. You know, that's when I was the awakening of becoming a DJ.
How did you get into noise music?
So the thing about noise music is my mom taught me so much about like art history and stuff like that, which means that she taught a lot about abstract art. And I got into a lot of music because of both her and my dad, especially her. But then I kind of kept thinking more and more, what about abstract music? What are the expressive potentials of abstract music? And so, especially when it comes to, I guess, like louder, it doesn't always have to be loud noise music. It gets a rep for that. So, but obviously, like all the less smooth sounds that happen in punk and rock and metal and rap, like there's a lot of textures that are used in backgrounds of rap too. So it's like the more I heard that stuff, the more I started focusing on, hey, what if there are people who paint with all of those sound colors?
How would you describe your experience as poet?
Well, very opening. I'll say that word, opening, because like I've got poems that no one has ever seen, much less heard. And so I had a chance to share those poems on stage with different kinds of people. And then I also had this little thing when COVID started that I would write poems for people. I think I wrote one for your mom too. And so that actually was quite a good experience because I got to know people more intimately. They shared their experiences. I wrote about them, or not necessarily about them, but I tried to write to them. And I feel like I connected more with people doing that than anything else.
The Writers of Oya is my brainchild. If the audience doesn't know, this is my daughter. And I'm going to talk personally, but honestly. I started the Writers of Oya after receiving an arts grant from the Urbana Arts and Culture Commission and the death of my brother. And I struggled with his death, and I started to get better. And by me getting better, I had started to see you struggle. So I started the Writers of Oya because I've always written whenever I had a hard time emotionally. And I wrote through his death, and I was thinking maybe I can teach my daughter how to write as a coping mechanism. And then it turned into this beautiful relationship between me and the participants. And I feel as though it strengthened my relationship as a mother to you, because there's times you say things and I don't get it, or I disagree, or I shut it down. And then we'll go to a Writers of Oya meeting, and then the other girls will say the exact same thing, and I'm like, I should have listened. And I hear how they express, well, my mom made me feel this way, and I'm like, I totally just did that. And then I come home and I reflect on it and I try to make it better. So it's like I started this group to get you to write, to get through the trauma of Babu's death, but the group is teaching me parenting. The group is teaching me that as I'm mentoring the other girls through hurtful experiences that they may have with other adults, is teaching me how I've done hurtful things to the children in my life. and how it's opened my eyes to how I use my age and my authority as a privilege, and how I need to take a step back and listen, because you guys have something powerful to say. And it's not just the other participants, it's also in you and in Kayla, my daughters.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Will you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Danielle Chenoweth, and I'm the current president here at the Independent Media Center. I also serve as the Cunningham Township Supervisor, and I've been involved in issues around criminal justice reform in this town for a long time.
That's really cool. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What do you like to do?
Yeah, so, this, what I like to do is basically speak truth to power. I spend a lot of time trying to help our community understand that we're really a community of contrast, and that there's a kind of a shutout class that stands alongside a professional class. So I do a lot of direct service to the community through the township, and then I also do a lot of work around policy change. And in my free time, and I don't have a whole lot of free time, honestly, in my free time I really like hiking with my partner and her dog, and I have a 10-year-old. So we like to get outside and run around and ski and skate and do everything we can to keep our bodies healthy.
That sounds really cool. So what are some difficulties you have experienced when trying to get policies changed or trying to communicate something to a board or legislature?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we face in the United States is that we have very thin social movements, and our social movements kind of look like fads. It looks more like fashion than it looks like movements. And that's because it's really driven by like capitalism and media systems that basically kind of lift up a story and lift up an issue, and then they bury the issue, a few months later. So I think, I've been on the planet for a while, and I've been organizing in this community since 1995. And one of the things I've seen is really a challenge is that it's hard for us to build kind of sustained movement infrastructure. And one of the reasons I'm involved with the IMC is because the IMC is really meant to be a space that helps to support lots of different organizing that happens. And it's really meant to be kind of like a backbone or like a consistent kind of basket that kind of holds a lot of different issues and, and helps to support people in coming to voice around those issues. So we're trying, we've been trying to correct for that problem in social movements in this country by providing some level of like stable infrastructure and support for folks who are really, working on social justice, racial justice, gender justice.
All right, well, welcome to IMC Sounds Like Community. I'm Janelle Pleasure, and I'm hosting this evening. So, our live stream show meets every Wednesday, 7 p.m. until our doors open again. We're here on Zoom and also streaming live on 104.5 WFRU Radio out of Urbana, Champaign, Independent Media Center, IMC for short. Please note that this event is being recorded. Your audio will be muted during the show to improve the quality of the performer's sound. And we will keep an archive, but it will not include the video of the audience and will end at the end of the performance. We present 2 sets of material, performances or talks on local activist issues. The first will be at 7 p.m., a little bit later right now, and the second at 7:45 p.m. We invite you, our audience, to email programdirector@ucimc.org with suggestions for performers or if you'd like to help plan an event. The IMC is a membership organization, and you can support us by making a donation or becoming a member of the IMC itself. We will also be sharing how you can support the performers on tonight's series. Just like you would in like a concert or a show, you can think about giving a donation at the door or consider donating on a sliding scale if you're in the position to do so. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve supporting our performers, please reach out to us. We will be sharing that in the chat window as well, so make sure you look for that. If you're here on Zoom with us, you can open a chat window and message with the audience members. For most people, you find that by clicking the speech bubble at the bottom of your screen. Now, for our introduction to the evening. Up first, tonight we will have the Writers of Oya. The Writers of Oya consist of Mackenzie Johnson, Camila Files, Shakira Bromley, Denilah Nash, Ashley Ramos, and Ashanti Files. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the writers of Oya. Can everybody give them a round of applause?
Facts don't care about your feelings, and yes, that much is true. But if facts don't care about feelings, why should I care about you? Some people stole from Target, and we all got blamed for it. But when Europeans looted Africa, everyone else ignored it. But black on black crime rates are higher. You don't doubt it. But what about white on white crime or any other race? No one wants to hear about it. When Kaepernick kneeled, everyone got upset. But what about when Chauvin kneeled on a black man who wasn't even a threat? I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I'm drowning, suffocating. Everybody only wants to keep debating. People stay debating when there are witnesses right in front of you. I am right in front of you. Why don't you see me? You don't see me. You don't see us. But we will not continue getting paid dust. And everybody needs to put their hands up because they will see our revolution. They will see us today.
My name is Ashley, and today I'm going to be presenting a poem that I wrote like 3 weeks ago about everything that's happened right now in the United States, and I name it Today. Wow, the United States has changed. A protest that was supposed to be for defend blacks' rights turned into a vandalism. They don't know how scared I am for my safety now. I am not African American, and now they treat me worse than before. I am very afraid for my safety. I can no longer leave my house by myself for fear that something happens to me. I'm afraid to go running outside for fear of being attacked for being black or being me. As an Afro-Latina, I am not safe of anything. No one knows that I'm Afro-Latina until they hear me speak. This is not okay. I'm really scared. I don't want what is happening out there. I just want to stay in my room, the only place where I feel safe. I'm afraid to go outside and someone do something to me. Please don't hurt me. I'm also innocent. They are hurting innocent people who did nothing. This country discriminates against everyone. Just because I'm Latina and I'm black, are you going to take my life? Just because I speak Spanish and you don't like me? Or because I'm black and black are bad for you? I came here to look for a better life and education. And you are going to take my life because I'm Latina and black? That's the reason why you are going to kill me? Please, I'm begging you on my knees. Don't kill me. Let me live more time. I'm still young. Please don't kill me. I'm an innocent person. I haven't done anything for you to take my life. Please don't kill me.
My name is Mackenzie Johnson, and I named my poem The Movement. The pigment of our skin should not divide us, but for some reason it does. We should not be treated differently for the way we look or what we believe. We are supposed to be a community, but here we are, putting people down for liking the same gender as themselves or wanting to be a different gender. We should not put them down, but support them for who they are or want to be. I agree with the movement, but the looting is not necessary. But I am 100% with the protesting. We need to fight for not only ourselves, but for others too. I am only a child and do not understand, but I will try my hardest to fight for what is right.
The world is falling apart piece by piece. Every day there's a young black male or female getting killed by these racist police officers. They claim they're here to help, but they're just killing us every day. We have kids that are scared to go outside every day because they're afraid they're going to be next. We get down on our knees and put our hands up, but you still continue to shoot us. It's like you see our skin colors as weapons. We can never claim we're innocent because of our skin and being racially profiled. We try to overpower them, but the system just lets them get away with it. People say all lives matter, but not all people are getting killed by the color of their skins. They want us to be quiet, but we can't be silent about the things that matter. You say we all making this a big deal, and that's because it is. If you would start treating us fairly, we wouldn't have to do all this. We march and protest to make our voices heard, but they use violence to make us silent because they don't want to hear what we have to say. Black lives matter. My life matters. My brother's lives matter. My sister lives matter. All Black lives matter, but they don't want to hear us.
For years, my sisters all around the world have been mistaken for cleaners, for cooks, for breeders. Never again. By the way, I made you a sandwich made of layers of my success, courage, strength, and dignity. Topped it off with a few years of pain you've given to us. Also a side of my grief. I'm sorry, you didn't ask for this. Did I ask for slits on my arms or bruises on my neck, back, and face? Did I ask for domestic abuse or countless nights of rape? Did I? Also, I cleaned up a bit. I polished your ego and stepped on it so you would feel what I did all those years. I dusted off your stupidity so you could see it clearly in the mirror. Follow these steps, ladies. You'll be the perfect housewife.
So, as one of the younger members of the board on the IMC, and as one of the younger members of the people and activists in this community, have you felt a generational divide between some of the people in the community and yourself?
You know what? Surprisingly, no. I feel as though I'm just getting started with activism in this. Well, I'll take that back. I started with activism in this community when I was a student at the University of Illinois. When I was at U of I, we were trying to get rid of the chief. You may not know much about the chief because he's gone now. And so it was all of us students and we were together. Flash forward, we moved. I have a husband and a family now. And stabilizing, that was the most important. But as I began to perform my poetry more and I'm getting to know more activists, no, I don't think there's a generational divide. It seems as though with the Black Lives Matter movement, you have the guy who invited me, Maurice Hayes, who was also on Southside Community when we did our Riders of Oya episode. He called out to all these people and I was just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to march. And remember I told you couldn't go because I didn't think it would be safe for children. We were in the middle of the pandemic. And then I go and there's people there in wheelchairs and there's people on the side who can't march. They have their walkers and their canes and they are Black and they are white and they are Latino and they are gay and they are straight and they are trans. And everybody just doing what they can to lift their voices for a united cause. So I feel as though while people my age seem to be very active, like boots on the ground, the older generations have figured out how to get into systems and how to use their voice in systems, so they're more polished, but they know when they need boots on the ground to mobilize my generation, right? And then with your generation, you guys keep us honest. You guys hold us accountable. So using the Black Lives Matter protest last summer, there was a young male who was a teenager who said not only do Black lives matter, but gay lives matter, queer lives matter, trans lives matter. And I'm thinking, well, what does that got to do with this? And then I stopped. I'm like, that absolutely has to do with this. So I feel as though we continue to work together because we recognize that we all need each other. We recognize that we mentor each other. And we recognize that we can't do this alone. So within this community, what I found that is the ageism isn't a big problem in the activist circles. The ageism is a problem in the circles of the systems we're trying to break down.
Being poet laureate helped you make more connections with the community?
Yes, I do. I mean, I know a lot more people in the community now than I did before. And, I have more interest in sharing my ideas with the community than I did before. Before, poetry was something of a private thing, but now it's much more of a public activity.
What changes do you see in our community?
Well, that's a good question. I think that in terms of the poet community, I feel like there's more unity now than there was. I feel like more people like yourself are able to get out and express yourself in words, and you have that tremendous environment around you that supports your work. Much different from when I was a 10-year-old, Do you know what a latchkey kid is? I was a latchkey kid, which meant my parents were both at work all day long, so I had to come home and be by myself at home. And so I did a lot of different kinds of things, but sometimes I wrote little silly poems about things that I thought were funny. And so that's really when I started actively trying to do something. And do you know what streaking is? Streaking is a fad back in the 70s that people used to take off all their clothes and run through a public place. And so I wrote poetry about things like that. So my little streaker would run through. One line I remember is his bare knobby legs would crush all the eggs because he was running through a grocery store. So I didn't have anybody to share that with. No poet friends, no mentors. Even my parents told me to shut up and go away, sort of. So you are in a position to do good things, do better things than I think past generations might have had.
Let's see. Well, I think at the core of it, my writing speaks to personal injustices. A lot of stuff like abuse and things like that that I dealt with, I didn't really have an outlet. Didn't have many people to really talk to about it because in my community and kind of within the household, you can't talk about it. So the fact that I couldn't talk about it allowed me to just put my emotions and thoughts to paper, and then I could just hide it away and read it myself. So that's one of the ways that I kind of got justice for myself and had a voice, is just by writing it out, because that was the way to go.
Okay, so how do you think like the pandemic played into that?
I think the pandemic played into it because it there was a lot of voices that got squashed, my own voice included. It seemed like everybody was talking about death and tragedy and pain and isolation, and nobody was really listening to anybody else. And that made for, a lot of grief and a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. And so, instead of being able to express it and share it with others, I internalized it and wrote it out. And I think that's what happened with a lot of people. They just internalized things through this pandemic, and they either wrote it out, they yelled it, violence. There's a lot of stuff that came from it. So, yeah.
Well, do you think your activism and stuff that you've been doing like that, do you think it's helped you during the pandemic?
I think so. It's allowed me to have a bolder voice outside of a piece of paper. It's allowed me to speak up a little bit more to people face to face, as opposed to hiding behind, a book saying, "Hey, look, I'm mad at you." Now I can just pretty much say, "Hey, look, what you're doing is wrong. I'm mad at you. We need to fix this now."
So speaking of books, I read your book Eyes Open. I thought it was really
You
good.
did? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, thank you.
Yeah, I read it. And my favorite poem in there was I Had a Dream Once. So what caused you to write that poem?
So that poem talked about, it's basically about my children, all of them together collectively, and about my own childhood. And I wanted to just get across the fact that, as a mom, there's so much that you want for your children, and yet they're only given to you for a short amount of time. Like, you guys, we love on you, we cherish you, and we want to see you grow. And sometimes as parents, because we have no manual, we get it wrong. And, that can cause discord within families. It can cause a lot of pain to the kids and to the parents as well. And I wrote it because I wanted to kind of show that I wasn't alone. I have a tribe of people around me, and I got God. And despite everything that I want for my children and everything that I want to see them do and grow, they're their own people. And I have to just love on them the best I can and turn them over to God, and hope that the little knowledge that I tried to impart in them will continue to flourish and grow, and they'll be great human beings. And they are. So I'm kind of proud.
Do you think the pandemic has made you like realize that more?
Yes, I think it has. And it's primarily because my children are in my face 24/7 now. There's not a there's not a break. So it's definitely allowed me to look at them under a different light and appreciate and value them a little bit more, because time is short, and I've lost a lot of people during this pandemic. So, it definitely, as a parent, it definitely allows me to hold on to them a little bit more.
That's really cool. So with your work in the community with like all the poetry and stuff you've been doing and with your art, do you think do you see any changes happening in the community because of it?
Um, why would you hit me with a hard one? I thought you was gonna give me an easy one. You know, I honestly say that I've seen little change. I'm not gonna say it's been monumental or anything like that, but I've heard whispers here and there that my work and my words have impacted people. And that's been really encouraging to hear, because sometimes as an artist, you don't really think that you have been recognized or people understand or get where you're coming from. But I've been hearing here and there that, you know, people really enjoy the art that I do. They enjoy my words, they're encouraged by it. And it causes like this ripple effect to allow them to, you know, do their own thing. So in that, yes, I would have to say that, you know, the pandemic's allowed my voice to sprinkle on others and let them grow.
Music. What does music mean to you?
That's an awesome question. Music is universal. Music has so many shapes. I mean, nature is music. Nature is, you know, rain falling. It's rhythms. It's flows. It's waves. It's all of these things that just, and then, you know, that's what people are so awesome at. That's like, I just think one of the highest forms of human technology is music.
Right.
Because it's so diverse. You can do so many things. You can get so many different sounds and feelings, and it's a universe of its own almost. You know, it's like this little microcosm.
How did sounds like community impact your experience here in Champaign and quarantine in general? How did it impact you?
Yeah, well, I guess it's been an opportunity for me that there weren't really opportunities with performing live. So with being able to do the virtual, we were able to perform and do it, and, you know, have the community be able to listen and be introduced to us. So that's been really good.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's been a really good thing weekly. So it's such a good resource.
Right. The last time you played with us and Riders of Oil, and your music helped me go up there. I have anxiety, so like hearing you and like seeing that you were so into it, somewhere like you felt safe. It seemed like you felt safe when you were playing, and I was like, if this guy can come up here and play some music for a 16-year-old and still feel, you know, like somebody, I can come up here and speak. And I really appreciate you and what you do for our community and your music as well. It really helps.
Oh, cheers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So, what do you think music does to help for the fight against racism?
Whoo! Actually, that's it's crazy that you mentioned that, because forgot to mention, also introduction, I'll be teaching level 2, 3rd through 5th grade at Garden Hills this summer for Freedom School, and my afternoon activity is actually titled Freedom According to ... Black Revolutionary Artists. And as we know, black art specifically is political. Everything is political, but black art is specifically political. So artists like Gil Scott-Heron, obviously Revolution Will Not Be Televised, you know, Winter in America. These are some of the songs and artists that I grew up to listen to. You know, Stevie Wonder, right? Everybody knows Stevie Wonder, but a lot of people may not know Stevie Wonder's song, let's say Pastime Paradise, where he's comparing what is a pastime paradise to a future's paradise. And so hoping that we live in that future's paradise. Songs like Love's in Need of Love Today by Stevie. Prince, he has a new album coming out, Welcome to America, and I think that's going to be his greatest album. I'm a huge Prince fan. I model a lot of my, when I do music, inspiration. Stevie, Prince, huge inspirations. If we want to bring it to present day, No Name, rapping from Chicago, but highly political. And so art has always been political. There's this one book we read in one of my Afro diaspora classes, Flash of the Spirit. But it basically talks about how in order to survive, we took on, through amalgamation, through, remnants of white culture, of European culture, of indigenous culture than what we brought over here through the European slave trade. We were able to survive. Our culture was able to survive. It may have changed, but it was able to survive. And so we know music. There wouldn't be any of this music today if it wasn't for, the ancient, not ancient, but the old spiritual hymns, gospel music, jazz, everything derives from that. And so we wouldn't be talking about music today if it wasn't for Black folks in America through survival. And so music and art just in general, again, expression. How do we express ourselves? And because Black people in particular, our Blackness is demonized. Our Blackness is our Blackness is demonized. If we're able to express ourselves, Black joy itself is revolutionary. And so I think it speaks for itself.
That's great. So you talked about your class that you're going to do at Garden Hills upcoming, and we know that you did an anti-racism and healing workshop recently. So what's your favorite part about working with kids?
Wow, it's so I've been teaching children for, I think this is going on in my 6 years now. One thing about the children is children are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for to learn new things, and their minds are open. When you get to like high school, individuals start to get this microcosmic view of the world. As a young adult, as a child, you're able to develop their minds a little bit more. You get to college a little bit closed off, and so the potential for I will say it like that, for radicalizing young adults, because I was radicalized in my 8th grade, my freshman year of high school. That was my radicalizing period. But being able to radicalize children at a very young age is, one, beautiful, two, but necessary for a revolution and whatnot. Now, of course, I'm not saying we're using children to radicalize them, but for example, you were in the racial healing class, you and your sister. You all are bright. You all are more intelligent than, I don't want to say you're more intelligent than my class when we were that age, but there's a certain awareness that your generation, the youth today, have that my generation, when we were young, did not have. So the simple fact that you all are starting off, earlier, than, most of my generation in terms of, y'all knew what capitalism was. Like, whoa, like I didn't know what capitalism was for real, and it's clear, in a clear critique, critical analysis of it till probably a few years ago. You all know this 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, right? Some of you are before college, before high school. And so it's special that the youth are just open to knowledge and awareness. But obviously I love the kids. The kids are the future. And so being able to teach the children, being able to teach the youth, I'm hopeful that there are many other individuals, obviously like me, there are many teachers out there who want to push a political education for the children. And because of that, I believe the future is in the right place. Again, y'all already know what's going on. So it's like, I clearly see that the future is there. The future is bright.
So how has it been for you adjusting to like the whole Zoom thing and everything, like social distancing and quarantine and everything like that?
Well, I'm a social animal, as most people are, so it's very difficult. Like, I'm a 30-year organizer, so I like to sit down. This is one of the first times I've been able to sit down face-to-face with somebody and have a conversation. And frankly, it's like these conversations that juice me up and like help me to really feel full and to like make my heart feel full. Right, and frankly, this last year, it's been very difficult to have that feeling. I've been much more in my like nuclear family pod, which I'm really grateful for, right? But also, it's, I hate Zoom, and I don't want to be on video conferencing ever again in my life, and I would prefer to sit down face to face and have conversations. And frankly, when there is disagreement, because we're not able to like be in the room together and kind of feel each other out, I think it has created a lot more conflict and a lot more kind of hard feelings. And so I look forward to a time when it's safe for us to be back together, you know, in the same space.
Okay. So what changes do you see that are happening in the community right now because of your work and because of other people on Sounds Like Community and other activists in our area?
Well, one thing I can say is, you know, I moved here in 1995. I've never went to this university. I didn't come here as a student. I actually came here as an artist. And I thought I came with my partner at the time, and she and I were going to stay for a year. That was a long time ago. And so there's a reason that we stayed, and that reason has been more clear to me than ever before this last year, because Champaign County and Champaign-Urbana is such a like connected and resilient space. Not that we don't have our problems, but I feel like as we have been surviving this pandemic together, I have seen more collaboration and cooperation. I've seen more people come together, you know, who usually were kind of siloed or there was some friction. Folks who are willing to do the work and not just talk about the work, those folks, we've been coming together this whole year, and we've been helping to make sure people stay alive, they stay safe. We've been delivering people to their, delivering food to people's homes. We've been helping them get bailed out on rent. We've been helping folks get their water turned back on. And it's been like, the community has been great. Like anything that we ask for over at Township, anything we ask for, it's like it just shows up at our front doorstep the next day. So this community is amazing. And it's taught me a lot about, you know, this is not the first crisis, right? I mean, we're facing catastrophic climate change. We're facing late stage capitalism. We're facing, you know, we're having to look in the mirror in terms of the foundations of the country that were built on the slave trade and racism. And, you know, we got a lot to move through as a community and as a country. And so the way that we've handled this year, I think, gives me a lot of hope that as we continue to work through some of the issues that we need to work through in our culture, we're going to be in a place where we can keep coming together and, you know, building solutions and designing solutions together.
Tell us, what does artistry and activism mean to you, and how do they come together? Like, how does and specifically, how does your artistry and activism come together if you participate in artistry and activism?
I think there's sort of a merging point where, like, if I'm sad, I don't want to immediately go and play my cello, right? I'm like, I'm feeling kind of down right now. Let me watch something or listen. And then I'm like, how about I listen to this song? And then I'm like, I kind of like this song. Let me write about this song and how it made me feel. Why don't I go play a song? Hey, how about I go play cello? And then I'll play cello for an hour. So, and then the way that it goes into activism is, like, I'll write a poem intended for me to see. My mom, she'll give us writing prompts. So I'll like look at it and I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna do this later. One of them was supposed to be a letter to your mom. Like, it was called, like, I wish you knew dear mom, like stuff like that. And I looked at it and I was like, okay. I started writing it. Then I turned to my dad, and then I turned to my younger sister, and then I was like, I haven't written about my older sister yet. So I did that, and I was just thinking, you know what? I'm gonna go perform this somewhere. So I've got quite a few poems like that. The first poem I wrote was intended just so I could, you know, be one of the group. I was like, my mom's doing this poetry thing, my older's doing this poetry thing. I'm gonna do it too, so I can flex and be like, yeah, I'm in a poetry group. And then she was like, okay, write a second one. And I was like, so I wrote a second one.
On the spot.
and I was like, this is kind of okay. And then I had to immediately after that, like 2 weeks later, I had to go do this. I don't even remember what it was for. But this lady, she was critiquing our writing. And they got the name of the poem wrong. And I just remember I was so mad. I was just like, dang it! Like, come on! And I remember I was looking so cute that day. My nana brought me this pretty church dress. I was like, I'm gonna wear this. My hair was done. I had these pretty purple braids. I was like, I'm looking so cute. And they got the name wrong. And I was just like, I'm gonna make sure nobody ever does that again. So that's how I was like, well, I'm gonna keep writing more and more so that I'll never get it wrong. So that's pretty much how it became like a
let's go do this for the community just because somebody was like, hey, okay, write a second one. And I was like, it sort of became a spiral. Like, it was like, this second one is pretty good. And then I was like, well, I'm going to decide about this, doing this, doing this. How about I write some poetry today because I'll do something productive, right? And it became like a, I want to do this for the community thing instead of a, I want to do this because I can look cool. So that's sort of how it, you know, my art went into activism.
I think what I was trying to do was see the social context of music, certainly in a bar. You know, people would ask me to play a song. They'd be so drunk that after I'd play it, they'd ask me to play the song again. It was like, dude, I just played it for you. So, and then I met people here, a circle of people that were constantly concerned about Vietnam, about institutional racism, and they were always linking it to music. And it was like, what does music have to do with, you know, capitalism? I mean, what? I thought music was safe from capitalism. That's kind of why I went into music. I didn't want to think about society. It seemed so messed up. I thought, let me just get in music. Music is safe. Music is a bunch of tunes. Music is pretty. But I was so impressed and also angry that these people were always bringing up the social consequences of music. What happens when you play repetitive music and people kind of zone out? Isn't that a political statement that the music is causing people to kind of there was a lot of pot and drug use connected to listening to music. It's like, why is that? So I then started hearing music that I never would have heard in Chicago with these people in Champaign-Urbana that was clearly trying to make people pay attention to the world we were living in. And it took me many years. I was always mad about that. I just like, isn't there some way we can just hide from society? Won't you let me hide? And no, I wasn't going to be allowed to hide.
With your art now, with the poetry and even the music, you know, how does, you know, self-doubt or like we are our biggest critic, that's just a fact. Do you ever find yourself down because you critique yourself or you critique your art too much? If you do.
Yes, a lot of the time I do. It's because like I have anxiety and stuff like that. A lot of my anxiety comes from like intrusive thoughts being like, are you really good at this? Like just trying to make me doubt myself, stuff like that. And sometimes I do doubt myself, but I never let it hold me back for long. I feel like I have a good support system. I have people who care about me, who want to see me do my art. So that's what drives me. That's what keeps me going. And I also have to keep myself going sometimes, stuff like that. Because I know it's not going to be like, I know I'm going to grow up, stuff like that. I'm not going to have these exact same people around me forever, stuff like that. So, you know, I just take a lot of time to myself. I put a lot of pride in my work, and I try to do my best to continue developing it and make sure it's not always the same, you know. And I take a lot of time into focusing on my mental health and stuff like that, making sure I'm mentally strong, physically strong, emotionally strong, spiritually strong, stuff like that. Yeah, just so I can be strong for the people who can't be strong or who are not strong.